What happens when you take an 18-team fantasy draft of the best baseball players of all time and put them into MLB The Show in an ultra-competitive fantasy showdown? It's the Legends League!
Hello, everybody. Welcome one, welcome all to the podcast for Legends League Baseball. I'm Bobby Ray. I'll be your host for the Babe Ruth episode, which is number 3. Spencer's away on a much-needed vacation right now. I'm joined today by the manager of the fake San Francisco Giants, Hunter Pedersen. How are you doing this evening, Hunter?
I'm doing great. Not fake great, real great. And the Legends League is, the Major League Baseball is keeping me up at night with COVID questions and answers, and will they, won't they have the season? But, as I think you mentioned in your show notes, video game characters don't get COVID. So this league is going to hammer on and be reliable and, an interesting source of fun. So
That's right. I'm not even thinking about Major League Baseball tonight, just thinking about the Legends League.
Right. There you go. That's the only mentality to have.
So, Hunter, now that we're a month into the season, how are you feeling about your roster and about how the league is going in general?
Well, it's very fitting. I think I lost yesterday, so I'm exactly 500. Which basically means I probably could have done nothing and auto drafted, and everything would have happened the same. I feel like I'm obviously we play a lot of fantasy baseball together, and you know me just as a video game player in general, and I tinker, a big tinkerer. So I feel like I'm trying to figure things out, trying not to over tinker, but. Yeah, I'm feeling okay being 500. I think, obviously it's a baseball season, so the realistic part of being 16-16 is that you're just fine, and that a lot of different things can happen. I know we'll go over today, but, there's still some outlying stats and kind of some things that are probably a little goofy, even though, most pitchers and hitters have had their turns through. I think we're probably at 100 at-bats for most major players, and we're also at, 6+ games pitched for most starting pitchers. So.
Yep.
Both those numbers I know are kind of where you start seeing some stats normalize, in real life, which obviously we can carry over to this, and we can start saying, okay, this person is maybe actually better than we thought, or this person's actually, there is something wrong that's going to last the course of a season. So, I think it's fitting that I feel like I'm still starting at kind of ground zero and trying to figure out how to gain some traction.
That's a great mentality to have, and I think that this is really the first point in the season where you can actually, like you're saying, start to separate some of the trends from just the streaks and actually take some strategy moving forward rather than just reacting, because we always overreact to the start of any sports league, right?
Yeah, and I think something else that I thought was interesting, I just went through waivers before this just to get in my own waiver claims, but also to see who's been active and making changes to their teams versus who has been steady pat. And as I started doing it, it was sort of one of those exercises where I feel like I'm looking for data, and then there's almost this solution that makes more sense of, a lot of the top teams, the Phillies, the Nationals, the Angels, the Tigers, the Cardinals, and the Braves haven't done anything, haven't made a single waiver claim. A team like the A's or my team, the A's I think have made 10 waiver claims, so shuffling players kind of back and forth. Not including a trade that he also made.
Right.
Spencer, who's not here to defend himself. And then,
of course.
And then I also am active on waivers, as are some other teams. But, just that I was like, oh, man, the teams that aren't doing anything are winning. And it's like, well, actually, they're probably not doing anything because they're winning. So that's maybe a little bit of a catch-22.
Yeah, chicken and an egg thing right there, right?
Yeah. I think there's a couple teams that definitely could still use some things, and maybe their records are kind of falsely leading them down the belief that, like, oh, you can get by without a single left-handed pitcher or something.
Right.
Just playing PK the show, especially with our fantasy league, we did the simulation before this to get our feet wet, and I remember especially in the playoffs, matchups became really, really crucial. It felt like for every game there were really interesting moments where you ran out of a left-hander reliever and it just kind of felt like it nailed you. So
right.
I'll be curious to see if that kind of happy-go-lucky simming numbers either hurt somebody in the playoffs because they weren't aware enough of a problem, or or they're missing out on what I guess we've probably the rest of the league has now gone through over 40 players on waivers. So just seeing a lot more people's breakdown of rosters versus people who are just not checking them out might end up leading to some knowledge. I don't know.
Yeah, we will see. So later on today's show, we're going to look at some legends and losers. We're going to debut a new power rankings out of the commissioner's office, and we'll be joined by a special guest this week, Andrew Cozzie from the fake Baltimore Orioles, to talk about his tough as nails division, the AL East. But first, it's time for a look back at the week of action in Around the Horn.
Round the horn.
So we are officially done with the first full month of the season in April, which means the game actually spits out its first Player of the Month awards, actually given out in-game by MLB The Show. So I figured those were worth announcing. In the American League, Nolan Ryan takes Pitcher of the Month with a 5-1 record over 6 games in April, with a 1.45 ERA and 51 strikeouts in only 43 and a third April innings. Just dominant stuff. And then J.D. Martinez of the Tigers takes Hitter of the Month with his .343 batting average over 99 at-bats, driving in 24 runs and swatting 8 home runs. Tell us about the National League, Hunter.
In the National League, it's Fergie Jenkins.
Fergie!
Fergie Jenkins for the Brewers with a 4-0 month, 37 strikeouts, 1.42 ERAs against all Hall of Famers. And then, which is always amazing to me when I see the pitching stats and how it's kind of normalized. And then Ralph Kiner, who's been, incredible the whole year. He batted .448 for the month, which is basically the whole season. 10 home runs, 26 RBIs. The Phillies are on top of the NL East. And then he has a .413 overall batting average still. So, 30 plus games into the season, still hitting .413 with huge power. I don't have his OPS in front of me, but again, not a light, .413. Oh yeah, there it is. His OPS is his OPS is almost 1,300. 500 on base combined with a 700 slugging. So really, just monstrous numbers from Ralph Kiner.
And 20 walks and only 18 strikeouts on the season.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And you look at his stats, and the huge power. Good, not elite contact, not elite vision, but man, just and not a great fielder. But that bat has been insanely valuable. Maybe the most valuable bat. Probably the most valuable bat, I guess. Yeah.
I think so. I think he's the inside leader for MVP so far. Clearly this has got to be his best month of the season. But if he does anything like this for the rest of the year, he'll be walking to the MVP.
Right, and you look at all the numbers around. The only people you see on this leaderboard are even. They're part-time players because it's almost impossible to have these numbers going the amount of at-bats that he's had. But, the other stat that's obviously very impressive is the 20 walks to the 18 strikeouts. So when he's not killing you by hitting in runs, he's getting on base and he's not striking out. So, a really, really good start for him.
It's wild. So having a look at the standings, we're down to only one Cupcake Division leader now, as the Rangers absolutely refuse to go down from the top spot in the AL West, while the rest of the division continues to beat up on each other. The Tigers keep their healthy lead on the pack in the AL Central, though both the Indians and White Sox have turned a corner, and they ended the month tied with each other, though they are both 8 games back of Detroit, which is a hefty hole to dig yourself out of as we're beginning May. And the AL East is still neck and neck, with the Orioles currently holding a 2-game lead on first place, and the Blue Jays only 3 games back in the cellar, so that's still as tough as ever.
And in the NL, you have the Phillies, 19-12, pulled away, at the expense of my Giants a little bit there last week.
Right.
Which we had some fun late innings action. Pirates and Cardinals have been kind of bashing each other up against, for lead there, but switching almost every day. But again, both of them comfortably in a good enough record to be either 1A or 1 there in the division. In the NL West, the story continues to be the Rockies, who seem like a game-breaking computer team in the other way, somehow only having 4 wins and 25 losses.
I'm baffled.
And then the Padres, who have kind of started to give some daylight between themselves, and I think again you mentioned it, the Tigers swept them, which if you take that away from their record, they're have 22 wins, I think, instead of 19. So
right.
Again, I think it's really interesting how well they're doing. I just wanted to have one more note on the Tigers. I know I'm covering the NL, but looking at hitting around the league and some other interesting stats here. You mentioned J.D. Martinez for hitter of the month with a .343 batting average. I was also looking at guys like Joey Votto, who I think is again hitting well above 300. Maybe it's a little bit of envy that I don't have any of these guys, but you're talking about guys that again were drafted in the back half of the draft, that are paying huge dividends. Some, kind of, I guess I'd call them modern era sluggers, right? Still playing
Right.
today, Votto and JD Martinez and Kristen Yelich and
Robinson
we surrounded
Cano.
himself with right Robinson Cano. I mean, everybody's hitting over 300 and was kind of in this like 12th to 25th round area. Weren't super high up on people's hit list. So any one of them would be leading my team in batting average at least. I think that same goes for a lot of teams around the league who are searching for these who can be a guy that might hit 300, and he's got 5 or 6 guys hitting over 300, and some of them hitting 340 like Votto.
Yeah, insane. I don't know. Just call it right now. Do you think the Tigers cool off, or do you think that they're skating to the end of the season? They're not going to slow down at all.
When I look at some of these stats, I think they're gonna cool off. Again, I like to think that the stat distribution will come back to the norm, and even though guys like Joey Votto are insanely good, I don't know that he's the world beater that the computer has him at. Like in the context of this Hall of Fame Legends pool, I do think he has an incredible staff, and I think drafting pretty heavy all the way to 5 was a good idea.
Yep.
I think I know I at least had the strategy of kind of draft a big 3, with Marichal, Kershaw, and Cole, and Garrett Cole, and then kind of laid off until the very last rounds, with Catfish and Scott. And I feel like I wish I had probably pounced a little bit earlier on at least a great 4 and 5. So having Fernando Valenzuela and Walker Buehler, even though I'm looking at him right now, he's got a snowflake near him, so he's obviously on a cold streak, but he's still got a 3.35 ERA. He's 4-1. I mean, that's what else would you want out of your 4th starter? I think most people would want that out of their ace. So
Right.
He's obviously got a deep rotation. Did well in the bullpen, obviously. Trevor Hoffman back there, so he really doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. I know we're going to get into power rankings, which is probably a good segue right here.
Perfect segue.
So much.
Yeah.
But I think both of them atop our list for current power rankings.
Absolutely. So, great segue. This is the debut for the Legends League Power Rankings. So I pumped out my own version of Power Rankings, and we've got a couple other people who are submitting some Power Rankings that we'll make an aggregate out of. If you out there are interested in throwing in your opinion, certainly email them or text them my way, and we can figure out how to get your opinions worked into our aggregate. But my 30-team Power Rankings in order, I'm just going to go ahead and list them off. Number 1, we've got the Tigers, followed by the Cardinals, Phillies, Padres, and Indians finishing out the top 5. Indians with a big move up my list after their recent hot streak. The Pirates coming in 6th, followed by the Orioles, the Giants, the Rays, and the Mariners finishing out the top 10. Then I've got the Braves, White Sox, Angels, Brewers, Athletics, Dodgers, Blue Jays, Nats. Rangers at 19 is my highest cupcake team, and I don't think I have any. Yeah, I don't have any Legends teams ranked lower than any cupcakes, though. We'll see if that's worth arguing about in a sec. At 20, I've got the Diamondbacks, followed by the Marlins, the Yankees, the Mets, the Astros, the Marlins. Oh, I put the Marlins twice. That's supposed to be the Twins. The Cubs, the Red Sox, the Reds, and then at the bottom, we've got the Royals at 29 and the Rockies at 30. So let's get into it. For me, there's really a top 6 that separate themselves. That's the Tigers, Cardinals, Phillies, Padres, Indians, and Pirates. Then from 7 through, what is it, 18, it's kind of all a really tightly packed mass to me, and it's really hard for me to give any daylight between who I have the Orioles at 7 and the Nationals at 18, but I feel like that could flip-flop over the course of a week just with some different results. And then the bottom of the tier, you've got your cupcakes, where there's 2 of them who are really competitive so far. I think the Rangers and the Diamondbacks are right there, and they kind of threaten to jump over a couple of these Legends League teams if things don't turn it around. And then really there's kind of a bottom 6 in my mind between the Twins, the Cubs, the Red Sox, Reds, Royals, and Rockies, who are just the absolute bottom of the barrel. So let's start off with this kind of top 6 thing, Hunter. Do you agree that there's kind of a top tier? Do you think maybe the Tigers should be separated in a even tippier, top-tier tier? What do you think?
Oh, yeah, maybe the Tigers might be in their own tier just based on how everything's going. That's interesting. I liked your 6 separation. I think you have it nailed pretty well. The big difference between our list, and I won't go through my entire one. People can see it online if they want, but I had the Mariners in. I went a little bit more off, I guess, team build and talent in the way that I had almost projected in the preseason, and just almost holding strong to those numbers over some win numbers. And then I had the Pirates, who's in your top 6, being much lower. On my list, I have them at 10. So Adam can take that for fuel, or however he wants. But, just based on true talent and roster construction. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, we had 5 out of 5 in that top 6, even if we had them in different order. So I thought that was a pretty good collection, and a pretty good test to say, okay, we both definitely agree that there are those kind of top 5, maybe I would almost call them, best teams right now that everybody else is chasing. And then I like your kind of tier and basement piece, and maybe eventually this breaks out in the middle and we can figure out if there is this true second tier of another 6 teams or whatever, or if it's kind of all one big slushy pack and just a race to the wild card.
Right, I think it might be. So I'm interested on your rankings. You have the Indians at 2, and I'm interested how they rose so far up your rankings so quickly.
I part of it, I think, has to do with recency of watching kind of how much they're being some world beaters right now. I really like the roster construction, especially towards their back. Looking at their hitters right now, like you have David Wright hitting 8th, Omar Vizquel not great at your 9 spot, but I feel like they have pretty much power and contact kind of 1 through 8 in a way that my team doesn't quite. I feel like I'm really strong 1 through 5, and maybe that depth is kind of allowing them to crack into people a little bit more. Holiday, they kind of, I think they waited a little bit on pitching, if I remember right, in the draft.
I think so.
And then they picked a lot of guys. So I don't know. Look at this rotation now. Obviously Holiday's, Santana, CC have all been pitching really well. So they needed that out of those guys because they kind of waited on pitching a little bit, and they built that big roster. But if you then have the pitching to at least keep you in games, they're going to be okay from that. I still think they probably need a true 5th starter. They're definitely not in the Tigers realm. And if I'm being honest, I probably could flip-flop them with any other of those kind of top. Again, 2 through 6 for me is pretty fluid.
Right.
As I think you're kind of thinking the same thing, that the Tigers are probably almost are 1-1, and then you could probably go anything you want, kind of 1 through 6, with those next 5 to 6 teams, and be just fine. So
yeah, then our other biggest difference here, I've got the Mariners at 10, you've got them at 4, and then as you mentioned, you've got the Pirates down at 10, whereas I've got the Pirates at number 6. So I'm interested for you to elaborate a bit on the team construction elements that you think are keeping the Mariners above the Pirates despite their disparate records so far.
Yeah, I think I've been interested at what to kind of watch. Felix Hernandez was a guy I looked at a lot in the draft. He was one of those guys, like I think we had a day in between when he got taken, and I was waiting to see if he was like going to be this great gem. And after looking at his stat profile, and obviously real life Felix, obviously love him and been a witness to greatness, but he doesn't really have any kind of crusher stat that you look for. K per 9 at 87, I guess is his best, but really not killer for a starting pitcher. Even velocity at 76, hits per 9 at 76. I just control at 69 worried me. So I don't know. He's sitting at a 5.0, and he's your number 2. I'm a little worried about him. Maybe even more so with the whip number at 1.4. That guys are just going to be able to wait on him because he does have that little bit lacking control. I think it's a staff that's kind of a theme. If you look at David Cohen, I think has a 56 as his kind of control rating. Even Mad Bum, who's been phenomenal. Mad Bum on the other end of the spectrum with a 1.97 whip.
0.97 whip.
Sorry, 0.97. You're right, 0.97. We're talking baseball here. Has been a world beater, and Hippo Vaughn obviously has also been a world beater. But I don't know. I'm a little worried about David Cohn and Mad Bum's control issues are gonna come up to them. And to me, in pitching, that has seemed like an important stat. Obviously, Dwight Gooden hasn't really put it together yet, but after that, I know Lou spent picks early, the Mariners, on Pedro Martinez, Christy Mathewson. Ron Guthrie's been great. Bucky's been fine at his number 5. If he figures out kind of that one spot, and Dwight Gooden obviously deserves to take a long look there, but trying to figure out what the rotation is. I like this rotation better from a stats perspective, but obviously from a in-field, whatever, a computer simulated play, it hasn't been working out better. So I think there's definitely some interest both ways. I like this lineup. I think if I'm honestly now looking at this team and talking out loud, I think he constructed this team a little bit more like I did, maybe a little more top heavy.
You talking about the Mariners right now?
Mariners, yeah. Sorry, the Mariners a little more top heavy, and then big bats with big power with Griffey and Edgar Martinez in the middle. And then it gets a little weaker towards the end. I know he has Al Rosen now, who's I think been doing well, and Todd Helton kind of finishing out. So yeah, you see Al Rosen 341. I don't know exactly what he was when he picked him up, but maybe giving him a little bit more pop. Maybe he starts creeping up the batting order. I just think, I don't know. I like the names and the stat profiles of the guys the Mariners have. I went back and rewatched the season previews, and I think I just got to stick with my original pick that I think the Mariners are going to win that division, and I like the construction a little bit better.
Cool. Yeah, and maybe I'm a little bit biased towards the Pirates because they've had some really entertaining and really dominant wins on the live stream where you watch their team and it looks like, how can anybody beat this team? And then they'll rattle off a couple losses in the sim and nobody notices, but when the lights are shining, Frank Thomas and Andre Dawson look like two of the best players in the world.
Sure, and I totally agree. Again, and I've played MLB The Show a lot. I don't know exactly what's I still don't know exactly what the systems make, but I feel like, if you have a guy, against right-handed pitchers that has that 75 contact like Andrew Dawson, 75 vision, 69 power against right, I mean, even though he's 98 overall, those stats, I would say, are worse than any hitter I have going against right-handed pitchers. And obviously he's doing better than, some of my staff. And I'm not trying to dog that in any way. I just, I don't know. I think I maybe have some draft hangover bias that I should start shedding as real stats start coming in. But I'm looking at the overall numbers and some of these pieces and just thinking, well, wait a minute. Like you don't have a ton of power once you get past Frank Thomas. Willie Stargell obviously has an 87 overall and a world beater at your 4 and a left-hander, but he's hitting 205. I think they've gotten wins in ways that are maybe impressive, but again, when I look at the overall team build, I think they're lower, and I think the Mariners are higher, and those are, I know, two big ones that we disagreed on. And then I think the other big one, not to jump ahead of you, but
sure.
That I'm looking at our list and not to bore everyone with my entire list, but Blue Jays you had ranked at 17 below the Dodgers. I had them up higher. I have them at 9 above the Pirates, who are
all right,
doing better than them, and above my Giants.
I love it.
And again, I think the Blue Jays have one of the best middles, of a lineup. Nolan Arenado obviously has not been doing well. I'm actually kind of curious to see his true numbers, 208. I don't think that's going to hold based on looking at his hitting stats.
Only 2 home runs and 120 at-bats. That's certainly going to turn around.
Crazy for Nolan Arenado. Johnny Mize hitting 228. So I think he's had some bad luck here. With some hitters underperforming. I think maybe lineup construction, you might want to think about moving somebody like Jackie Robinson up. Obviously Clemente's been good. Kenny Lofton has not been great out of the leadoff spot. I know he's got a ton of speed, but again, maybe Jackie Robinson for Lofton, something like that, if you're really looking at it. But I think he's a couple tweaks away from getting the lineup going, and a couple just hot streaks away from that. And then from a staff perspective, I mean, again, maybe it's some playoff bias too in my power rankings, but I do not want to face Roger Clemens or Tom Seaver. So if I'm playing him in a 5-game series, that's like losing. I how to think about that. I know Juan Marichel's been throwing well, but I think he picked 2 pitchers before I had taken one off the board, and and I would take both these guys before Kershaw or Marichal. So from my perspective, I think the best 1-2 probably in the game in Clemens and Seaver, and Clemens has definitely been pitching like it, and then Jack Morris and Jim Palmer, and he has that kind of 1 through 5 stretch. So I think some of the bats start turning around on the Blue Jays, and you're going to see him just shoot up the rankings there. Except that the AL East, like we'll talk to Cozzie, is pretty stacked and doing well. And then not to dog too much on the Dodgers, and maybe this is inherent bias from a lifetime of disliking the Dodgers, but you had them up at 16. I threw them down at 19, below one of our cupcake teams, the Rangers.
Scandalous.
And I am maybe I'm being a jerk. Maybe I'm being a little bit biased. No, I think the Dodgers. I think their pitching's pretty good overall. DeGrom hasn't been necessarily a world beater, but the staff is pretty good. The bullpen's good. I think a lot of that stuff will shine through. Maybe Eddie Plank hasn't been that great, but I think most of us have 1 or 2 pitchers that are probably still in the mid-5 ERAs. This lineup, it feels like it almost takes a break. I don't know how to say that. It feels like you have like these pods of 2 or 3 guys, and then you kind of take a break of like, okay, now we're on to, like you have Tris Speaker and George Brett, and then you're like, I guess Pop Lloyd and Oscar Charlton. Yogi Berra's hitting stats aren't incredible. Pretty good, I guess. And then you get into, Turnkey Steres, Luis Santop. I mean, those are bad numbers. Mini Mimosa. I just
Mini Mimosa
here feels
his
like
cosmopolitan cousin.
I feel like it just kind of drops. I feel like it just kind of drops out, and if you have these rally, I mean, he's hitting 168. Maybe he just doesn't have that many. 100 at bats.
Yeah, he's been hitting in the 3-hole for the Dodgers for most of the year until he got demoted to the 8, and Pop Lloyd got brought up because he's near the league leaders in batting average. But I look at this lineup and I see 7 straight lefties, which great if you're facing a right-handed pitcher, but all of a sudden that can be a real liability.
Yeah, no kidding. We all saw Josh Hader lose a game today again. And he hasn't been good, but again, if you have a guy that theoretically, again, in those contact against lefties, power against lefties numbers get exposed, and you have good left-handed arms, if you're facing a Chapman or someone like that, you can really get blown away. And I agree, you leave yourself vulnerable to these kind of bullpen attacks late in games. So I agree, a 7 lefty lineup is a little too vulnerable for me, and I just don't know. There's not quite the balance, and doesn't look like the Dodgers lineup doesn't look like a meal I'd like to eat.
All right, shots fired.
A good portion of it, but the whole thing doesn't work together.
All righty, it's time to move on to some legends and losers.
Legends and losers.
So every week I try to go through and identify about 3 guys each of hitters and pitchers that are both doing well and doing poorly. And mostly the priority is to point out guys who have important hot or cold streaks, looking for that fire icon or that icicle icon, which, as we're going to see in Legends and Losers today, might lead to some confusing results. But starting off with some batting legends, we've got Ichiro, who's hitting .342 on the season. He ended the month of April, right? April. Yeah, it's going to be May, right? He ended the month of April on a 7-game hitting streak, going 13 for 32, hitting 406 over that span, though the middle of his order wasn't able to really turn that into abundant run production. Otherwise, the Cardinals would have had a much stronger end to the month, which is kind of scary to think about. Then Hank Greenberg over in San Diego, in his final 7 games of the month, went 12 for 28. Drew 3 walks, blasted 3 homers, and drove in 9, which is about as good. I mean, think about that as like a fantasy week on your real-life fantasy baseball team, right? That's pretty fantastic. Though the Padres only went 2-6 over that span as they ran into the Tigers and Cardinals to end the month, which was a real rough draw. And then Frank Robinson, over his last 7 starts of the month, there was one game where he pinch hit that I just threw out. But over those last 7 starts, he goes 11 for 26, 9 RBIs, 2 home runs, 4 walks, 2 steals, and scores 6 runs himself. And he was really one of the main reasons why the Indians were able to finish the month of April with a 10-game winning streak.
Oof.
Yeah. How about those pitching legends?
That's crazy. Yeah, on the pitching side, we have Steve Carlton. Last 3 starts, 21 innings pitched, 24 Ks to 7 walks, 2.97 ERA. Definitely what you want to see out of your starter. Roger Clemens, who started off incredibly hot and then has been a little on and off, but just pitched an 8-inning, 10K gem with no walks, 5 hits against the Red Sox. He had a rough start before that against the Orioles, but before that, again, a 7-inning, 7K, no walk. I mean, these no walk games are just so huge for a pitcher, and you see his whip sitting at .92, which is insane for a starter.
And that's on the season.
And on a season so far, so against Hall of Fame players from 45 innings. So, really crazy. And then Bullet Rogan. 1 earned run over his last 15 innings of work, striking out 20 versus only walking 1. Again, I think it's going to end up being a big key for a lot of these pitchers. Most recent start was his team's only win in a 4-game set versus the Cardinals. So Bullet Rogan doing his part to try to keep the Padres up as high as he can, and and a great name. So.
Yeah, and he's their 3 starter too. So behind Satchel Paige and Tim Lincecum, there's a playoff rotation to be feared.
Absolutely.
On the loser side for the pitchers, we lead it off with Chief Bender, who over his last 2 starts, he only managed 10 2/3 innings, allowing 9 earned runs. He walked 4 and did strike out 11. Those games were against Cleveland, who, as we know by now, is just red hot, and against the Houston Astros, who have an offense that can really put together some pain. But the A's have been skidding, and they really need some of their high overall pitchers to really step up, and Chief Bender has been the opposite of that lately. Chris Sale is a weird guy to have an icicle icon on his name, because his last 2 starts of the month, he had stellar... Except for his last start of the month. He just came off of 2 great starts against the Blue Jays and the Royals, and that led up to a belly flop to end the month against, who could have guessed, the Cleveland Indians, in which he only went 4 innings, gave up 5 earned, and only struck out 2, which is very unlike Chris Sale. His full season stats are a mixed bag with a 4-2 record and a 5.73 ERA. He is striking out about 1 batter per inning. So it looks like things are trending in the wrong direction, but as long as that cold streak is technically on him, there's probably still reason to worry. And I gotta wonder if at this point, if it's really just Cleveland is doing that to pitchers, just beating the life out of them. And then our final loser on the pitching side is Dizzy Dean, who is the last member of the Cardinals rotation to get it going. He picked up 2 straight losses to end the month with a miserable ERA of 6. And over those 2 games, he only managed 9 2/3 innings, allowed 10 earned runs, 16 hits, and walked 2. That's a whip of over 2 in those 2 games. The rest of the rotation has been fantastic, so there might be time to let Dizzy get himself straightened out, but it's not looking great heading into May.
Yeah, and again, let's go into the batting losers, and the streaky get streakier and the colder get colder. Christian Yelich over the last week of the season went only 3 for 23 with 1 walk. Did have a clutch home run against the Padres, but otherwise, slumping. 0 for 8 to end the month. Roy Campanella, one of the best hitters for the A's, going on early, has not been good for this month, like many of the A's hitters right now, striking out, 6 times, going 4 for 21, failing to be the run producer that Oakland needs him to be right now. And they're on a 5-game losing streak, so something needs to turn around there for them, hopefully. It's starting to get towards the standing pat working out, but eventually start to get into that pressure cooker. And then Nap Gion, another...
What was that again?
Lejeune. I'm so terrible with all these
I
names.
have no idea how to say it, actually, but I say Lejoie.
Nap Lejoie.
Yeah.
Bobby knows me well, in my texting and in my writing, that I will easily just throw out a name to make it.
He refused to call him Taiwan Walker. I believe until today, where you still call him Tajin, right?
Tajin. I still say Tajin Walker. What it looked like to me. So, anyways, Nate Lejeune has an icicle, having put together a 5-game hit streak to climb out of a slump. Brought his brought his average up to, I guess, or down to, whatever you want to look at it, 254. So
Yeah, I put him in there because he's a really confusing case. So he's the leadoff hitter for the Brewers, and he's got the icicle next to his name. But I go back and look at his last week of the season, and he's got a 5-game hitting streak. And I'm thinking, why is that icicle still there? So I'm assuming that meant that he was just slumping so hard coming out of the middle of the month that even that 5-game hitting streak isn't enough to erase that icicle. It's just wild to me.
Yeah, and I think moving into this, looking at these streaking players is really interesting each week. But I think there's an even a bigger macro thing to watch. And I know I was watching this during our playing for keeps, the fantasy league sim of just the modern day players of the 2020 season. Will people continue these streaks? And there were definitely a few that literally, like, if you're good to start the season, like it just continued on. I think Nelson Cruz and Kenston Hira we already mentioned, and we don't have to make them such legends in this Legends League, but that really dominated the league. And it wasn't like a hot start and then they slumped and then they streaked. It was like they were just on fire the whole time, and
right.
There were some players that were just cold the whole time. And I think adjusting to that and adjusting to those streaks is something that people will need to start paying attention to, these real stats versus like I still am apparently, just kind of the player bubble of, hey, these are his stats, contact and vision and power, and that's what he should be doing. Well, this is what the game is saying he's doing, so you need to kind of adjust to that eventually.
Absolutely. Stay water. It's so important. And with that, I think it is time to bring on our special guest for the week.
Be our guest.
All right, I'm happy to welcome in our special guest of the week. He's the manager of the fake Baltimore Orioles, the guy who got our kick-ass Discord channel together where we do almost everything for the league now, and he's the reason why we were able to expand this league to such a large field of teams and make it such a competitive and fun league. Everybody welcome Andrew Cozzie!
Woo-hoo. All right.
How are you doing after a gut-wrenching loss in Game 1 to the White Sox earlier today?
Yeah, that one was tough to swallow. A lot of excitement. I watched almost the whole thing while at work.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was kind of fun. I wish I would have won.
Right.
But, I was kind of going crazy a little bit, trying to get some, managing moves in the Twitch chat.
Yeah.
But, so it goes with the streams. I can't get them all in there. I don't even think they would have mattered at the time, because the way he won it is, Trout driving in a run at the end. I couldn't really done anything about that.
Yeah, that's the truth. Why don't you give our audience a little bit of what the experience is like of watching your AI managers put in pitchers or leave them out there to die while you just sit there and suffer?
Sure. Leaving them in there to die while I suffer seems to be a theme. I kind of complained about it a little while ago, saying that it seems like a lot of pitchers I see on stream are staying in for well over 100, 110 pitches.
Right.
To the point where, it would be nice to be a little more hands-on with that, but I think everyone understands that obviously a lot of games are simmed, so you have no choice there, but especially in a stream, if there's 5 streams in a day and you're not going to be watching everything, it's really just a roll of the dice whether you can make a move. But as for the AI manager, yeah, I've become pretty frustrated, especially seeing some box scores with how the bullpen is used, and how it isn't even that they leave pitchers out there to dry, but when a new inning starts, it's I would like a new pitcher in there. Or if someone walks a guy and he's already at 120 pitches, it's okay, I'd give this guy the heave-ho right now.
Yeah, so maybe we'll think about adjusting that manager hook slider another tick if things keep going this way. Because, I've seen Ubaldo Jimenez have too many 3 or 4 inning appearances when he certainly doesn't deserve it.
Agree.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. There's been a lot of words spoken about how competitive the AL East is. I said it was the AL Division of Death really early on, and I want to hear from the manager of the Orioles. How do you feel about your divisional opponents, and how confident do you feel about your roster after a month of play?
Good question. I do think that is going to be just bloodbath the entire year in our division. I think we have a couple of really good cupcakes in the league in our division. I hoped to get out to a little better of a start, but the teams in our division, Tony got out to the hottest start, and he's kind of come back down a little bit, and then Bob and I started kind of in the basement, and we've worked our way back up. But as for how packed it is, it's separated by just 3 games from top to bottom. My record is 500, and I'm in first.
Yeah,
which is kind of absurd. I think Tony's pitching, Clemens, I would have expected to just from the get-go every game just like be lights out dominant. That hasn't really been the case. I would think that his staff will start to like move him back up into the standings. As for the other, myself and Bob Wagner's Rays, I might sound a little harsh. I didn't think that the Rays would keep pace with me as I started to climb to the top a little bit.
Okay.
He also did, he made some improvements to his lineup, and he started to come back. I know that was part of your analysis of his team, is that he had such a versatile lineup.
Right.
I feel, I'm kind of biased to my team, but I felt like
You gotta be.
my team would put it together, and Nolan Ryan would, start pitching like Nolan Ryan, and I would have a good, solid bullpen to shut down games, and here we are.
Here we are. So, yeah, Hunter, why don't you take over for some draft questions?
Yeah, I wanted to ask about picking 5th in the draft. I thought this was a pretty interesting spot. When I heard I got second, I kind of looked, and I had 4 guys that anybody could have gone second to me. And obviously that didn't have to be the case. I'm happy I ended up getting Willie Mays. Could have gone Barry Bonds. I think he was gone by 4. Babe Ruth was gone by 5. So I was pretty curious to see what happened from here. This is kind of like where I stopped being able to predict the draft. So tell me about you think picking 5th in this kind of giant 18-person snake and your strategy going into it, and what's paid off and what hasn't.
Sure. I thought it was a little tricky because, you have just like the rest of the teams in the top half of the draft, you have a long wait to come back around. And 5th, you kind of feel like you have a tight turn to where you get your next pick, but there's actually 9 picks in between that. I had it in my mind that like if the bullpen picks would be important, so I kind of like tried to couple that with some guys who I had coming back around on the wheel. This whole draft was filled with like people went out and got their guys.
Yeah.
You didn't want to miss somebody. Run on a position like starting pitchers just almost nonstop going.
Big time runs on pitching.
Oh yeah, pitching and the relievers. Like I said, I put importance on closers.
Yeah.
I mean, not just closers, but the bullpen.
Which I think is a great. I was looking back at your draft. I think that's a big strength of yours.
And you kind of feel like I was gonna I was reaching for someone like Mo Rivera, but I really didn't think I would get him the next time around.
And he's just so unique. I mean, the true elite relievers, I think, went kind of early, and then you built some good bridge guys there too. Why don't we talk a little bit about Hammer and Hank, and then Nolan Ryan, kind of your first 2. Tell me about your thoughts with Hank at 5. Did it feel like that was your guy, and you were happy you got there? Did you feel like you were kind of picking out of the bigger blob there?
I never really considered Hank my guy. Actually, having the 5th pick on such a incredible draft pool, like you can't go wrong. I really had my sights set on Barry Bonds or Babe Ruth, and they went in the picks just before me.
Ouch.
So then when it came to me, I guess I had to settle for the number 2 all-time home run hitter. Which
settling real far, yeah.
Yeah, right. It's it was within what I wanted with you know, a power hitter, someone playing outfield. He hasn't been off to the best start, so whether that was the right pick or not, you know, hindsight is 2020. You know, maybe I would have picked someone else, but who knows? I definitely wasn't going to go pitching first, that's for sure. But on the way back, when Nolan Ryan, the strikeout king of all time, was available, I had to get him.
Yeah, I thought you had a really fun. I know there was a lot of talk of sniping in this draft, and you picking 5 and me picking 2. You had more than a couple on me.
I remember us chatting a little bit about that. Some infielders.
I loved your Nolan Ryan pick. I was actually surprised almost. You know, it shouldn't be that unplugged to the draft. You know, whatever it was, pick 30 something. But for him to still be on the board. You know, just from a name recognition standpoint. And then I thought Pete Rose in the 5th was pretty fun. You know, definitely on the level of I think I got a Tony Gwynn in the 4th in that same realm. And then,
that was a crazy round.
That was a lot of fun. I feel like that was the round people had slept and then they were ready for it. And then, I think your Mo Rivera, Andrew Miller combo in the 3rd round and the 7th round, just from a bullpen perspective and how crucial it seems like there are so many games that go tied late into the innings in this sim. I don't know if you've been happy when it gets to your bullpen watching. It sounds like obviously not when starters get left in, but if it actually gets to the back end, you got to feel pretty good about yourself.
Yeah, it's true. I think that was kind of in my mind was, you know, having a guy like Andrew Miller to go in the 8th inning and just go in for the hold and then have it closed out by Mario Rivera. Couldn't get much better than that. I have thought maybe Miller in the 7th round was a little bit of a reach for me. You know, if I could have done anything differently in that regard, I probably wouldn't have taken Miller in the 7th and probably would have tried to add another starting pitcher. Instead of, you know, I think my second best pitcher is Lefty Grove, who's great, you know, but after that, they're kind of all the same. You know, I don't have like a real third ace like some of these teams do.
Yeah, there's a real mush tier at pitcher after that. There's a bunch of serviceable 2 guys, and then, like you say, some teams in the league have a serviceable 2 at their 3 spot. But then after that, it's just everybody's the same.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at your bullpen right now, and one thing that just jumps off the page to me, Andrew Miller has thrown 3.1 innings. Mark Eichhorn, your second setup guy, has thrown 4. Mo Rivera has 10.2, which is good. Ubaldo's thrown 27.1 innings out of your long relief slot.
And he's doing okay. I mean, he does have a 3.29, but that 1.8 whip, obviously, you know, with the 44 control gets him in trouble.
He's been a workhorse for sure. I was kind of going crazy how long my AI manager left him in the game today. I think at one point I was complaining that he had thrown 60 pitches.
Oh my God. In a tie game.
Yeah.
Like a 9-inning, you know, I mean, it was a tie game, I guess, but like, at that point.
And meanwhile, I'm up on a stepladder with a drill, just do, have no idea what's going on. That's what happens with Legends League baseball.
Yeah, Bobby, that's a good point about, you know, just paying attention to some innings lineup, like you're saying, that 7th round pick, like Andrew Miller having 3 innings pitched. You know, both to your point, Cozzie, having that instead be a starting pitcher, somebody that you know is going to get the innings. And then, maybe trying to rearrange this a little bit to maybe get some more usage out of him. I don't know if it's dropping him in long relief. He does have kind of an unusually long. He should have more stamina than most. Well, not really. They don't really give Andrew Miller that much, 24. But
surprising.
You know, maybe middle relief or something like that. But I hear you there of trying to figure out what the golden ticket is. We've all been trying to figure that out.
Right.
So I guess that kind of leads me to my next question for you know, just a fun hindsight of kind of regrets, missed opportunities. I know you've mentioned kind of Andrew Miller as one. I think we kind of organically talked about it there. Anything else that you feel like was just kind of a miss?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I sort of regretted the starting pitching strategy that I went with. You know, I took Lefty Grove, you know, not super late. I took him with my 4th pick. after that, though, I kind of let it go. I took it taking Yadier Molina in the 8th round. I probably shouldn't have done that. I feel like I didn't take another pitcher until like the 15th round. I think I put more focus on that. Would have been a better thing to do. But how fun was the draft though? Like,
yeah. No, really. I mean, and for that group to gel together so well, I think Bobby mentioned we had a lot of people coming from our 10-year fantasy keeper draft, but then a lot of friends of yours from Chicago and
the sniping going back and forth between everybody on the Discord, and
everybody got into the trash talk very early. It was nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to mention that, like, in regards to snipes, at the end of the draft when people were sending in 3 or 4 guys to go off of, and whoever was at the top of that list just picked them for me. I picked up Mark Eichhorn, who I picked him up, one, because he's a righty setup guy. Well, Miller is a lefty. And he's the all-time WAR leader for setup men.
What?
Which was cool to learn. But apparently I had sniped him just before the Blue Jays picked him, which I thought in the 20th round or whatever was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Like such a random guy like that.
Seriously. Yeah, that is exactly how competitive that draft was.
Right. I think everybody was trying to look into extreme stats. I mean, I know I caught myself just reading Wikipedia, like non-stat pages, stories to try to make up who you wanted. And then you'd realize that you and somebody else had been stumbled upon the same thing and had the same target. It was pretty wild.
Yeah.
And way far down the overall list too, not the top guy on the board or anything.
Oh yeah.
So as we've already mentioned, one of the primary reasons why the Legends League is so competitive is the influx of all these fantasy baseball fiends from Chicago. So tell us about this baseball-crazed crew that you've brought into our PFK family.
Yeah, so I was really excited when you started talking about the Legends League, because I have been talking about PFK to some of these guys for, probably 10 years.
Right.
We would we all played pub trivia together. So we'd meet up at a bar an hour before that started, and we would literally once a week just talk about our fantasy teams. So pretty much all these guys, have heard about PFK a lot, and, obviously huge baseball fans. I've known most of them for a very long time. Rick is the only one I've never met in person. Shout out. Yeah, Rick. He is a coworker, or was a coworker, I'm not sure, of Lou. But we've been in another fantasy league for quite some time now, and that's I was excited to get him in the fold.
And he's been just the absolute ringer. He's the manager of the Tigers, by the way.
Oh my God, yeah, he's got just he's got such a great team, and it's just so fun, because from the outset, I'm like, man, I hope, I get all these guys involved. I hope it's a lot of fun for them. I hope they stay involved in it. And I think they all are. Everybody's still on the Discord, talking to each other. Right before the league started, I had a text thread with all these guys, and every email that went out, they were just clinging to every word, and they were just so into it. We were just so stoked for this, because obviously there was no real baseball at the time.
Right.
And they hadn't met Bobby Ray before and seen this isn't some taped together league here. We got podcasts and Discord, and I mean it's a full on entertainment value of this thing.
Yeah. It's really fun, having everybody in the Twitch chat. Also, I've had my brother watches a ton of the games. People's parents have been watching. It's great just talking about I said that I had it up at work today. I had a game, so I had some coworkers looking on every now and then. It's a lot of fun to talk about.
That's absolutely fantastic. Looking behind the hood of some of the Twitch stuff, it's been fun to look at some of the analytics. And my favorite number to watch raise has been total hours of this channel watched. So if there's 10 people watching for an hour, it comes out as 10 hours watched, right? I think today, this morning, we hit 1,000 collective hours watched. And that includes when we did PFK, the show, just our own little 10-person league. But 1,000 hours of this stuff consumed so far, that's mind-boggling to me.
The people need baseball.
Yeah, you can feel the hunger. Yeah,
You know, it's baseball, gambling, Hall of Famers.
Something. Yeah, no, it's been a ton of wild entertainment, and yeah, I'm with Bobby. That thank you for getting together this bigger league and this having 18 managers who are all really on top of their game has been fun.
Oh
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Anything else on that?
I hope, you know, everybody's teams stay involved all the way through the whole. I mean, it's a full season.
It's
so
grind.
I hope everybody is in the mix. You know, no one turns into the Rockies. So.
So yeah, the last thing I've got for you is you've got a much anticipated matchup this week with the White Sox. We already had that game one that we were talking about earlier today. Are there any parting words you'd like to leave for your opponent?
You're going down, and yeah, I don't know. I really hope I win the rest of the games because I'm sure we'll have some money on them too. Are they going to be on the stream at all? Do you know?
I was planning on having all those games on the stream. Yeah.
Okay, so I might actually indeed have a heart attack.
Oh no.
It's yeah.
Come back on the red
bummed.
meat this week.
Yeah, I guess. I'm bummed that he doesn't have to face Nolan Ryan.
Ooh.
But, you know, what can you do?
Yeah, maybe
I do like watching the White Sox play at home. I wish I could root for him, but yeah.
Well, maybe Ubaldo Jimenez will be so tired that he won't be able to pitch the rest of
Well, then my starters are going to be in there for 150 pitches.
It's the only options.
Yeah.
And when it's Nolan Ryan and Lefty Grove, there are worse things to have happen.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, Cozzie, so much for joining us. We're going to sign off and get to our last couple segments. And yeah, we will see you out there on the field.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Later.
See you later.
Later, Mang.
The Commissioner's Tip of the Week.
This week's Commissioner Tip of the Week is about early season lineup adjustments. So the beginning of May is when I always start to tinker when I play franchise mode in MLB The Show. And this is going back I've been playing this game for, probably 10 years or more, going back to the mid-90s when I was playing baseball video games. So it's after the first month that I actually start to look at numbers, because any sooner than that, and I think that you can be too reactionary and react to streaks in a way that really isn't helpful. At this point, your starting batting players usually have more than 100 at-bats, and your rotation has gone through 5 or 6 times. So while a big hot or cold streak can still skew those numbers pretty badly, this is the point where I start to look for trends that I can actually take advantage of. So the tip is all about the number one stat that I look at for reshuffling lineups, and that's on base percentage by a mile. A distant second, I look at RBIs, and then way after that, the rest of the peripheral stats follow. It's because my approach to offense is really simple. Put guys who get on base a lot in front of guys who perform when there's guys on base, right? Put your on-base guys first, put your run producers behind them. It's super simple, but it's really easy to get this overcomplicated in baseball. So at this point, regardless of morale, overall rating, whatever, I'm going to put my top on-base percentage guys 1 and 2. Even if that's a guy who I planned on hitting 8 or 9 for the whole season, I want those guys right at the top of my lineup. If one of them is fast, that's a bonus, but I don't think it's so necessary. I think there's a lot that you can get hung up on trying to get a burner in that first spot of your lineup. But if he's not getting on base, it doesn't really matter at all. I'm super quick to demote poor performance, even if it's a superstar. Just take that leadoff guy who's really underperforming, give him some time in the 7 or 8 hole to get their swing together, and if they rattle off a hot streak, you can bring them right back up to the top of the lineup. But I'm refusing to let a high overall guy plug the top of my lineup if he's under the Mendoza line. Then the next step might actually be counterintuitive, but I really read into RBI at this point in a franchise sim, in the video game. And of course, we all know that RBIs are a flawed stat. It's entirely context dependent. You got to have runners on base when you come up to the plate in order to have the chance at RBIs. And a lot of times it's really just down to pure luck who gets those opportunities. But I do think that especially in this game, situational hitting is actually a skill. And I like to listen when the game is telling me something. If your 6 hitter is driving in 10 or 15 more runs than your 4 hitter, might be time to think about a switch. If your Hall of Fame 3-hitter only has 5 home runs and one of your platoon guys already has 6 in half as many at-bats, it's probably time to shake it up. I do think too much tinkering doesn't get you too far. Have conviction in your lineup moves. Let them play out for a few weeks. Let the game tell you what's working and what isn't. So long story short, here's the kind of cheat formula. Take your top 2 OBP guys, put them 1 and 2. My top on-base guy who also has high RBIs hits 3rd. That's probably your Mike Trout or your Ken Griffey Jr., right? Then my top 2 RBI guys go 4 and 5. Almost exclusively, I almost never break that when I'm doing roster changes at this point in the season. If you are lucky enough to have a big home run bopper who doesn't fit one of those top 5 slots, then he goes number 6. Personally, I don't like to platoon the top of my lineup, but that is a personal preference. I prefer throwing out the same lineup every day so I can actually analyze the results without too much variance, wondering, oh, we blew up for 10 runs. Was that because I'm using my anti-lefty lineup or something like that? I just like the same lineup every day so I can actually get the data back. Any thoughts on that, Hunter?
Yeah, I think I think that's good points. The OBP versus speed thing is something that I think I even struggle with. Mentally, I think a lot of people like to have that burner at the top. So, that guy can be just as effective in the 8 or 9 hole and have somebody else getting on base for the boppers is probably a pretty good mix. And then I think, to your point, when you're looking at it, whether it's actual in-game tracking for OBP or, I don't know if the stat would necessarily be a combination of like vision and I forget the other name of the more in-depth stat.
Discipline or clutch?
Discipline, that's what I'm thinking of. Discipline maybe to help you get on base and see some pitches. Not only just get on base, but also see pitches. I do think that just like a real baseball game, having some grinders at the top of your lineup can also help that. So, I think it's great advice and something I should probably listen to. And listening to it, I'm probably going to make some roster moves right now.
Awesome. Waivers are due 9 a.m. tomorrow, and that's when I'll be doing lineup changes. And that is it for the Legends League Podcast, Episode 3. Keep it tuned to Twitch this week for more matchups between the Orioles and the White Sox and plenty of other Legends League action. And stay tuned for a deep stat dive coming for each of your teams available later this week. That's it for us. See you on the field.
Woo!
Thanks for listening to the Legends League Podcast, brought to you by the Playing for Keeps fantasy baseball community. Follow us on Twitter at PFK The Show. Check out our YouTube page for box scores, highlights, and game recaps. And check out all the action streaming live at twitch.tv/PFK The Show.